Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into a bedtime history adventure that'll chill your bones just enough to make you grateful for your midnight snack picture, this Victorian London, where a kid could keel over from a lollipop brighter than a firefly, thanks to arsenic snuck in for that killer glow. Shocking. Right. Bedtime history doesn't get more twisted than that stat over 200 kids a year bit the dust from poison sweets alone back in the 1850s. Makes you wonder, could you hack a day as a hungry street rat, dodging death in every bite? What if that glowing candy was your only treat? Hang tight, because we're teasing a wild twist tonight, a whistleblower's secret that flipped the script on food forever. But first, the real nightmare starving in the shadows. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little time machine reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're young Jack, a scrappy 10-year-old street urchin in foggy London. 1852, jolting awake in a dank alley where the poisoned city whispers its sneaky curses through the gloom. Your belly rumbles like thunder in a tin can, that raw hunger gnawing deeper with every chilly breath. In your grubby little fist, the penny of hope glimmers faintly under a flickering gas lamp. Your one shot at grub today. Fragile as a dream in this gritty hellhole. It's like those tough settlers in colonial Jamestown, scraping by on cornmeal doctored with dirt just to stretch it, or depression folks back home mixing sawdust into bread for that absurd crunch. Absurdly enough, Victorian bakers spiked loaves with Thames River sand for extra bite, turning daily bread into a mouthful of urban grit. The fog's icy fingers seep through your ragged shirt, a clammy texture clinging to your skin like a bad omen, stirring that first twinge of discomfort. Ironic. How this penny feels like salvation when the city's smells of coal smoke and horse sweat scream otherwise. Shadows stretch long on the wet cobblestones, the alley swirling with ghostly mist, your penny sparkling like a tiny defiant star in your dirt-streaked palm. You stumble out of that shadowy alley, the penny of hope clutched tight in your fist like a lucky charm from one of those old frontier tales back home. Think the scrappy pioneers in colonial America, hustling for every scrap in Jamestown, where folks doctored up their cornmeal with whatever dirt they could scrape to make it last. But here in this poisoned city, that penny's your ticket to breakfast, or at least what passes for it in 1852 London. The cobblestones under your boots feel slick and uneven, like walking on a frozen puddle that's half melted from the night's drizzle, and the air hangs heavy with that acrid tang of coal smoke mixed with the faint, yeasty whiff of baking bread drifting from up ahead. Your stomach twists in that familiar knot of discomfort, a low rumble reminding you that skipping a meal isn't an option, not when the day's grind waits. Factories belching steam and bosses cracking whips. Irony hits you right away. You're out here chasing fresh food in a place where everything's a hustle. Just like those Depression-era breadlines in the States, where a loaf might look wholesome but was laced with fillers that left folks hollow inside. Pushing through the early morning fog, you spot the baker's stall huddled against a soot-blackened wall, its wooden counter piled high with loaves that gleam almost too white under the weak dawn light. The vendor, a burly guy with a flour-dusted apron and a moustache that could hide secrets, hollers out, "Fresh bread, lad's white as a lady's glove." His voice cuts through the murk like a foghorn, and you weave past a couple of other urchins eyeing the same bounty, your penny burning a hole in your palm. It's absurd. Really, this white bread obsession, a status symbol for the poor pretending to live like the toffs upstairs. You hand over your penny of hope, feeling that brief spark of triumph as he slaps a hunk into your grubby hands. The crust feels rough and warm to the touch, like a comforting hug from an old friend. But as you tear into it, the texture shifts crumbly inside, with an odd, gritty bite that sticks to your teeth. You chew eagerly at first, the yeasty smell filling your nostrils, a mix of fresh-baked warmth and something sharper, almost mineral-like, wafting up as you munch. But then the irony sinks in, deep and bitter, like biting into an apple that's rotten at the core. That extra crunch isn't from the oven's magic. It's from the baker's dirty little tricks alum for that pale, pretty look, and bone dust ground fine from the knacker's yard to bulk it up. Tidbit that's straight out of a nightmare some bakers swore by horse slaughterhouse scraps, calling it calcium-rich for growing bones. But it really just plugged you up like a cork in a bottle, earning the stuff the nickname iron bread among us street kids hard as nails and twice as unforgiving. Your tongue goes numb almost right away. A tingling discomfort spreading like pins and needles, the powdery residue coating your mouth like you'd swallowed a handful of desert sand. It's dry, so dry that you have to gulp down spit just to keep going, and your gut clenches in protest, that initial hope from the penny curdling into a wave of queasy regret. Why chase this wholesome start to the day when it's just another layer of the city's poison? Feels like a bad joke. Doesn't it the underdog like you, scraping by on illusions of plenty, while the real feast goes to those who can afford the untainted stuff? Historians still bicker about it. You know this whole adulteration game? Was it clever economics? A way for bakers to feed the masses on the cheap during the industrial boom, keeping the poor from outright starving in those smog-choked factories? Or was it straight-up social crime, dooming kids like you to twisted guts and early graves, widening the gap between the haves and have-nots? Back in America during the Great Depression, folks debated the same with those filler-packed loaves that left families malnourished despite full bellies. Innovation or exploitation? And get this modern parallel, it's eerily like the white bread you grab at the supermarket today, pumped with preservatives and additives that trigger allergies or worse, all for that shelf-stable convenience. You pause mid-bite, the loaf heavy in your hands now, its crust cracking open to reveal that unnatural white interior, flecked with suspicious specks that crunch under your molars. The baker's stall fades into view more clearly as the fog lifts a bit, steam rising from the loaves like wandering souls, curling lazily into the grey sky, while your face twists in a grimace under the pale morning light, eyes squinting against the chill. That discomfort builds, a slow burn in your chest, mixing with the irony of it all. Here you are, young Jack, pinning your morning hopes on this daily bread, only to find it's laced with the very grit of the streets you're trying to escape. The texture clings, powdery and unrelenting, turning each swallow into a reminder of how the poisoned city plays its games, promising nourishment, but delivering a gritty slap. Your mind races with that underdog fire, though, the kind that keeps you going. After all, if colonial settlers survived on worse, and depression kids turned scraps into survival stories, maybe this is just your chapter in the tale. But for now, the numbness spreads, your stomach growling louder in betrayal, and you press on, wiping crumbs from your chin. The penny of hope spent, but the day just dawning. That numbness from the bread lingers like a bad aftertaste. Your tongue still buzzing faintly as you trudge on through the thickening fog. The penny of hope wait. No. You still have a spare one tucked away from yesterday's odd jobs, that scrappy underdog luck kicking in just when you need it. It's funny in a twisted way, isn't it? Like those old-timey tales from back home, where a frontiersman in colonial Virginia might trade a single coin for a jug of milk that turned out to be watered-down slop, stretching the dairy from one cow across a whole settlement. But in this poisoned city, that extra penny feels like a lifeline, or maybe just another tease from the streets. Your boots splash through shallow puddles that reek of yesterday's rain mixed with something sourer, like spilled ale from a tavern, and the chill air nips at your ears, turning your breath into little ghosts that swirl around your face. Discomfort settles in deeper now, that ironic twist gnawing at you. You've just choked down what was supposed to be the start of your day, only to feel more hollow, your gut churning as if the city's already plotting its next move. Up ahead, the milkman's cart creaks into view, a rickety wooden thing parked crookedly on the corner, its sides splashed with faded ads promising pure country cream straight from the farm. The man himself, a lanky fellow with a pipe clenched between his teeth and a cap pulled low over his brow, whistles a jaunty tune as he ladles out the white stuff from a dented churn. You sidle up, heart pounding a bit, kids, like you know the drill, flashing that penny quick before he spots the desperation in your eyes. "A pint for the lad?" he grunts, his voice gravelly from the smoke, and you nod, sliding the coin across the splintered counter. The metal of the penny clinks softly against the wood, a sound that echoes your fleeting hope, and he hands over a cloudy glass bottle, cool to the touch with beads of condensation trickling down like tears. The texture's slick, almost oily under your fingers, and as you uncork it, a faint curdled scent wafts up, milky at first, but undercut by something sharper, chemical, like the tang of a chemist's lab mixed with spoiled butter. It's the kind of smell that makes your nose wrinkle involuntarily, a subtle assault that hints at the lie beneath. You tilt the bottle back, taking a swig to wash down the bread's grit. But oh boy, The irony hits like a splash of cold water in the face. This fresh milk is anything but it's the infamous swill milk from those city dairies, fed on distillery mash and spiked with formaldehyde to keep it from going sour too fast. A scandal that claimed thousands of little ones' lives in the 1850s, turning breakfast into a quiet killer. Ironic. Milkmen hawking it as fresher than the dew, when it's basically embalming fluid in a bottle, preserving the stuff longer than it preserves you. And get this absurd tidbit to make it creamy. Some sly operators stirred in animal brain fat, swearing it added that rich mouthfeel, but it sparked wild hallucinations in kids' mild trips where you'd swear the alley cats were talking back, like swigging a pint of nightmare fuel straight from the knackers. Your throat burns as the liquid slides down. A fizzy, acidic bite that scorches like lemon juice on a cut. The texture thin and watery at first, then thickening into a slimy coating that clings to your palate. Discomfort flares up hot and fast, your stomach twisting in knots. That initial gulp betraying you with a queasy roll that makes you pause, bottle hovering, as empathy creeps in for all those unnamed urchins who didn't make it past their morning pour. Historians love to hash this out. You see, was the swill milk racket just desperate innovation in a booming city where cows couldn't keep up with the demand? Or was it outright murder by neglect, hitting the poorest hardest and fueling calls for reform? It's got that same vibe as the debates over industrial milk in modern America, where big dairies pump in preservatives that studies link to cancers down the line. Or even those plant-based milks from developing markets laced with sketchy chemicals to cut cost stuff that promises health but delivers hidden hazards, much like what you're facing now. The bottle in your hand feels heavier suddenly, its glass fogged up from the chill, reflecting your pale, wide-eyed face back at you like a ghost in the mist. Bubbles form oddly on the surface as you swirl it, fizzing up like some mad scientist's potion, the opaque liquid swirling with flecks that might be cream or just more deceit. You force down another swallow, the burn spreading to your chest, eyes watering under the weak sunlight filtering through the haze, a shiver running down your spine not just from the cold, but from that inner turmoil, the discomfort of knowing this nourishment is laced with the city's venom. That empathy swells a touch, thinking of the other kids you've seen doubled over after their milk rounds, faces flushed and bellies heaving, victims of this daily gamble just to stay upright for the factory shift or the next hustle. The milkman's cart looms larger in your vision now, its churn gleaming dully under the emerging light, steam from a nearby kettle mingling with the fog to create a hazy veil, while your free hand clutches at your side, the texture of your threadbare shirt rough against your skin. The smell intensifies as you take another pull, sour and metallic, like pennies dissolved in vinegar, turning what should be comfort into a creeping dread. Irony piles on, here you are, young Jack, betting your last penny of hope on this elixir of life, only to feel the poisoned city laughing through every acidic drop. It's a raw underdog ache, that mix of hunger and betrayal pushing you forward. But planting seeds of sarcasm too, yeah. Fresh from the farm. Sure, if the farm's a graveyard. Your steps falter for a second, the bottle sloshing softly, but you press on, wiping your mouth with the back of your hand, the residue leaving a sticky film that tastes of regret. The discomfort deepens, a slow-building wave that has you questioning every shadow in the fog, but there's that spark of resilience, the kind that whispers you'll outlast this too, just like those depression survivors who turned watered-down milk into tales of grit. As the morning wears on, the streets start to buzz a little more, vendors' calls echoing faintly, but your focus narrows to the queasy churn inside, that ironic fresh start now a heavy weight. The bottle's nearly empty, its contents settling into a murky layer at the bottom, and you cap it with a shaky hand, the glass cool and slick against your palm. Empathy for the faceless thousands hits harder now, those kids who didn't get a second chance after a sip like this. Their stories buried in the city's underbelly. It's a horror wrapped in the everyday, that subtle sarcasm bubbling up who needs ghosts when your breakfast haunts you from the inside. But you, with your penny of hope tucked away for later battles, shake it off and keep moving. The discomfort a constant companion but not the end of your tale. That queasy churn from the milk sloshes around in your belly like a storm in a teacup as you weave deeper into the waking streets. The penny of hope jingling softly in your pocket, now your secret compass for whatever comes next. much like those resourceful farmhands during the Great Depression who bartered a single coin for scraps at roadside stands, turning desperation into a daily ritual. The fog's starting to thin out a hair, revealing the sprawl of the morning market ahead, a chaotic hive of carts and hawkers where the air thickens with a medley of scents that hit you all at once, the sharp, greasy sizzle of fat on hot plates mingling with the earthy tang of fresh-turned veggies and the underlying rot of whatever's been sitting out overnight. Your boots sink slightly into the muddied ground between stalls, the texture squelchy and cold, sucking at your soles like the city itself doesn't want to let go. Discomfort bubbles up again. That ironic punch to the gut you've barely survived breakfast, only to dive headfirst into this bazaar of bargains, where every shout of hot and fresh feels like a siren's call laced with trouble. It's the underdog's playground, sure, but one wrong bite and you're done for the day. Or worse. You squeeze through the growing crowd, elbows jostling with other early risers, factory hands rubbing sleep from their eyes, mums with tots clinging to skirts, all chasing the same illusion of a quick fill-up before the grind begins. The penny of hope feels warmer in your pocket, a tiny talisman urging you on, and your eyes lock onto a muffin stall first. The vendor a wiry woman with arms like pistons flipping golden brown treats on a sizzling griddle. Muffins, hot muffins. Straight from the oven, love, she bellows, her voice cutting through the din like a knife. You fish out that penny, heart skipping a beat, it's now or never, and she slaps one into your palm, the surface warm and crusty, with a soft give that promises comfort. But as you take that first chomp, the irony unfolds like a bad punchline. This fresh-baked delight is padded with yesterday's scraps, the muffin dense and chewy in a way that's off, the texture yielding to something almost spongy inside, laced with stale bits that crumble oddly on your tongue. The smell wafts up strong now, a buttery warmth undercut by a faint mustiness, like bread left too long in a damp corner, and your nose twitches at the assault. Pushing past the muffin haze, you spot the bacon cart next door, a burly bloke tending a pan over coals, the fat dripping off in golden rivulets that pool and pop with an inviting hiss. That penny's gone, but you've got a knack for haggling from watching the pros, and a quick flash of your urchin grin gets you a sliver for a half-penny scavenged from the dirt underdog smarts at work. The bacon strip feels greasy and substantial in your fingers, its surface crackling under your teeth as you bite in, the salty, smoky flavour exploding at first, but then, oh, the discomfort ramps up, that queasy milk churning harder against this new intruder, the texture's slick and chewy, with strands that pull like taffy gone wrong, and the smell, oh man, that charred, fatty aroma clings to your clothes, heavy and cloying, making your head spin a little. Irony drips in with every chew you're out here grabbing what looks like a hearty side, but it's rancid drippings from last night's leavings, meat trimmings that should have been tossed, stretched thin to feed the masses. Absurd as it gets, this dripping bacon was sometimes horse fat mixed with wishful thinking, doled out to cause what the kids called the runs relay, a collective dash to the privies that turned breakfast into a comedy of errors. Folks racing like it was a marathon gone wrong. The market pulses around you now, carts jostling in a whirlwind of activity, wooden wheels creaking over the uneven stones, vendors' shouts overlapping in a cacophony that buzzes in your ears like angry bees. Smoke from the bacon pan curls upward in thick, oily tendrils, wrapping around you like a toxic embrace, while your hands end up slick with that yellow grease, shining dully under the patchy sunlight breaking through the clouds. You wipe them on your trousers, the fabric absorbing the mess with a sticky drag, but the flavour lingers, a greasy film coating your mouth that mixes nauseatingly with the milk's afterburn. That inner discomfort swells, a hot flush creeping up your neck ironic. How this bustling bazaar screams opportunity, yet every nibble feels like tempting fate, your gut protesting with a low gurgle that has you glancing nervously at the shadows between stalls. Empathy flickers too, for the other faces in the crowd, hollow-cheeked like yours, all playing the same risky game just to power through the day. Folks still argue about these street markets in the history books. Was it the beating heart of the underclass economy, pumping cheap eats into the veins of the working poor and keeping the industrial machine oiled, or just a petri dish for plagues like cholera, spreading filth faster than you could say, fresh. It's got echoes of those American farm stands during the Great Depression, where roadside vendors hawked bargain basement produce that looked fine, but left families malnourished from the get-go, cheap calories masking the slow starve. And zoom to today, it's spot on, like those food trucks rolling through U.S. cities, slinging fast bites loaded with trans fats that spark the obesity epidemic, a modern plague, where convenience comes at the cost of your waistline and wallet. You dodge a cart laden with questionable veggies, their earthy, damp smell hitting you like a wave. The leaves wilted and textured with a slimy film from the night's dew. The bacon's grease drips down your chin, warm and viscous, pooling on your collar as you chew faster, trying to outrun the building nausea. That irony keeps twisting the knife, doesn't it? You're young Jack, the plucky survivor, using your penny of hope like a trusty sidekick to navigate this gauntlet. But each treat just amps up the discomfort, your stomach sloshing like a boat in rough seas. The market's visual chaos swirls piles of muffins steaming on the griddle, their tops brown to perfection but inside suspect, bacon strips curling in the pan, fat bubbling like molten gold, your grease-smeared hands catching the light, fingers glistening as you lick them clean out of sheer habit. The vendor's face looms in your periphery, grinning toothily as he flips another strip, the coals glowing red-hot beneath, casting flickering shadows that dance across the crowd. You learn quick, though, watching how the savvy ones sniff before they buy, or trade tips in hushed tones, underdog wisdom passed like contraband. The smell of charring fat intensifies, making your eyes water and throat tighten, that sensory overload pushing the discomfort to a peak. But there's a sarcastic edge to it now, yeah. Street eats for the win, if winning means a belly full of regrets. As you polish off the last of the bacon, the texture lingering like a bad memory, chewy bits catching between your teeth. The greasy sheen on your lips, you feel that bond with the penny of hope strengthen, your faithful guide through this morning madness. The crowd thickens, bodies brushing past with a scent of sweat and smoke, and you press forward, the discomfort a nagging shadow, but the irony fueling your fire in this poisoned city. Every market dash is a small victory, a tale of grit that'd make those depression hustlers nod in solidarity. Your hands, still tacky from the drippings, flex as you tuck them into your pockets. The pennies outline a reassuring bump against your thigh. The stalls blur into a tapestry of temptation, but you've got your eyes peeled now, learning to sidestep the traps, that inner turmoil mixing with a wry amusement at the whole charade. That greasy sheen from the bacon still coats your lips like a stubborn reminder of the market's false promises as you push through the thickening throng. The penny of hope now your last stand in this pocket, a worn silver disc that's seen better days but still hums with that underdog promise like those riverboat gamblers on the Mississippi back in colonial times, staking their final coin on a hand of cards that could mean feast or famine. The crowd's bustle fades behind you, giving way to the Thames' murky embrace, where the river laps at the embankments with a sluggish, oily slurp, its banks lined with weathered stalls hawking what passes for lunch in this poisoned city. Your stomach, already a roiling mess from the morning's hits, sends up a fresh wave of discomfort, that ironic jab hitting home you've hustled through the stalls like a pro, only to end up here, betting your final penny on something that smells more like regret than relief. The air shifts as you near the water, heavy with the briny tang of the tide mixed with the faint rot of fish guts and sewage, a scent that clings to your nostrils like damp wool, making your eyes water and your throat tighten. Underfoot, the path turns pebbly and slick from the spray, the texture gritty and uneven, like crunching over oyster shells left to dry in the sun. You spot the eel pie vendor ahead, a grizzled old salt with a face like weathered oak and hands scarred from years of gutting. His cart a battered relic propped against a piling, steam rising from a tray of golden-crusted pies that glisten temptingly in the pale midday light. Eel pies, fresh from the Thames, hot and hearty for a growing lad. He calls out, his voice a gravelly rumble that carries over the lapping waves, drawing you in despite the knot in your gut. That penny of hope slips from your fingers one last time, clinking onto his palm with a finality that echoes your fading optimism, and he wraps a pie in a scrap of newspaper, the warmth seeping through instantly, promising solace. But as you cradle it, the irony creeps in like fog off the river. You're pinning your midday hopes on this delicacy, a staple for us street kids chasing calories on the cheap, when the Thames itself is a floating sewer, churning out eels that have swam through every foul thing London dumps. It's absurd, this faith in the pie's flaky shell, especially when tales whisper of pies padded with wild pigeons instead of eel during lean times, turning what should be a slithery treat into an unexpected feathered feast that left more than one urchin picking quills from their teeth. A scandal hushed up in the 1850s papers as just market mishaps. The pie's heat radiates through the paper, a comforting weight in your hands at first, but as you peel back the wrapping, the steam billows out in a hot, savoury cloud that stings your eyes and fills your lungs with a fishy, peppery aroma, earthy and inviting, yet laced with an undercurrent of something off, like low tide gone bad. You take a cautious bite, the crust shattering with a satisfying crackle, flaky and buttery on the tongue, but then the filling hits a gelatinous mush that's chewy and dense, the texture yielding to tough, stringy bits that snag between your teeth. Discomfort surges immediately, that queasy breakfast brew bubbling up in protest as you chew, the warmth now feeling like a scalding trap, burning your palate while hiding a deeper rot. Irony bites harder than the pie, here you are. Young Jack, the resilient scrapper, forking over your last penny for what the vendors swear is River's bounty, only to find it's likely scraps from fish that's been lounging in polluted waters too long. The strange bone you crunch on turning out to be a shard from some half-rotted catch, nearly making you choke as it scrapes your throat. Your mind reels with empathy for the other lads you've seen here, faces gaunt and determined, all chasing the same slim chance at fullness in this unforgiving tide. Historians chew over eel pies like you chew this filling. Was it the ultimate symbol of underdog survival? A cheap protein punch that kept the working poor grinding through factory shifts and fog-shrouded days? Or the sneaky origin of cholera outbreaks, with the Thames filth seeping into every flaky bite and turning the river's gift into a vector for death? It's got that parallel to the murky Mississippi fish hauls in colonial America, where settlers chowed down on catfish from contaminated waters, sparking diseases that wiped out whole outposts before they even got a foothold innovation born of necessity, or a recipe for disaster. And fast forward to now, it's eerily like grabbing street sushi from a cart in modern US cities. That quick fix of raw fish promising exotic flair but packing a salmonella punch if the sauce is dodgy, tapping right into our everyday jitters about takeout gone wrong. The river stretches out before you, its surface a dull, churning brown flecked with debris bobbing like forgotten secrets. The waters slap against the stones a rhythmic, almost mocking pulse. Steam from your pie curls upward, mingling with the river mist to form a hazy veil, while the crust flakes onto your lap in golden crumbs, contrasting the grey sludge of the filling oozing out as you probe deeper. That inner discomfort builds like a tide itself, your throat working overtime to swallow around the offending bone shard, a sharp, fishy tang exploding on your taste buds that's more decay than delicacy, the texture slimy and resilient, fighting every gulp. Sweat beads on your forehead despite the chill breeze off the water, trickling down in salty rivulets that sting your eyes, and you wipe it away with a greasy sleeve, the fabric rough and damp against your skin. Irony swirls in your thoughts like the river's eddies you've spent your penny of hope on this hearty lunch, envisioning it as fuel for the afternoon's hustles. But it's just another layer of the poisoned city's game, the horror lurking in the everyday disguised as tradition. Empathy floods in for the unseen souls who've met their end from a bad pie, bellies bloated and faces pale by the embankment, their stories lost to the current. The vendor's cart creaks softly in the background, its tray emptying as other customers line up, their faces a mix of hope and hunger mirroring your own, the coals beneath glowing faintly red through the steam. You force down another bite, the heat now a blistering reminder on your tongue, masking the underlying funk of overripe eel that's been fresh a tad too long. The filling's greyish hue peeking through the crust like a guilty secret. The Thames bank comes alive visually, the murky water swirling with flotsam, an old boot or bottleneck bobbing past, the pie splitting open in your hands, revealing that suspicious innards with embedded oddities, and you, swallowing hastily, brow furrowed under the overcast sky, mopping sweat with a trembling hand. That sarcasm creeps in, a wry undercurrent to the discomfort. Yeah, eel pie, the poor man's feast. If feast means gambling your guts on river roulette, but there's resilience in you, that underdog spark, pushing you to finish despite the near choke, the bone shard finally going down with a painful scratch. The sensory onslaught eases a fraction as you lean against a piling, the wood rough and splintery under your back, the river's briny spray misting your face like a cool compress. Empathy deepens for the collective struggle. All you Thames-side stragglers bound by this shared gamble, turning potential poison into a badge of survival. The sun struggles higher, casting a watery light over the scene, highlighting the vendor's weathered features as he chats up the next customer, oblivious or indifferent to the risks he's peddling. Your pie's reduced to crumbs now, scattered on the damp ground where pigeons peck at them curiously. The texture of the last bit's dry and unyielding in your mouth. That discomfort lingers, a dull ache in your throat and a heavier one in your soul. But the irony fuels a quiet fire in this world. Every swallow's a small rebellion, a nod to those colonial river rats who ate questionable catches and lived to tell, or the modern foodies dodging bad sushi with a side of regret. You pocket the empty wrapping, the paper crinkling softly, and straighten up. The penny of hope spent but its spirit intact, whispering that you've made it through another round. The river flows on, indifferent, its surface rippling with hidden depths, much like the day's challenges ahead. But for now, that empathy binds you to the underdogs who've walked this bank before, their grit echoing in your steps. That lingering funk from the eel pie clings to your breath like a bad secret as you stagger away from the Thames's edge. The river's sloshy murmur fading behind you, but your gut still doing flips from that rogue bone shard. A sharp reminder that lunch was more gamble than guarantee, the penny of hope. Well, it's gone, spent on that flaky fiasco. But here's the underdog twist your street smarts kick in, and you spot a familiar face among the riverside stragglers, a mate from the Urchin crew who slips you a spare half-penny with a wink. For the sweets, Jack share the luck. It's like those neighbourhood kids during Halloween back home, pooling their candy hauls after a night of tricks or treats, turning solo scavenging into a group win. That shared penny of hope flickering back to life in your palm, warm from his pocket and humming with possibility. The streets narrow as you head inland, away from the water's brine, the path turning to packed dirt that cakes your boots in a fine, dusty layer, the texture gritty and clinging like unwanted company. Discomfort simmers low in your chest, that ironic edge sharpening you've just dodged a bellyache from river rot, only to chase joy in the form of confections that promise sweetness but deliver who knows what. The poisoned city's way of keeping you on your toes. The sweet stall materializes around the bend, a colourful beacon in the drab midday haze, its wooden counter groaning under jars of every hue imaginable. The vendor a jolly sort with a striped apron and a grin that screams salesman. Sweets for the soul, lads green as emeralds, tart as a lemon's kiss. He trills, his voice a merry lilt that draws a gaggle of kids like moths to a flame. You join the huddle. That revived penny of hope exchanged for a handful of green drops apple-flavoured. They claim the glass jar's lid popping with a satisfying click as he scoops them out, the candies tumbling into your palm like forbidden jewels. Their surface is smooth and glassy, cool to the touch with a slight tackiness from the sugar coating, and the scent hits you first, a sharp, fruity zing laced with something chemical, like fresh-cut grass mixed with the faint metallic whiff of a tin roof after rain. You pop one in your mouth, the hard shell cracking under your teeth with a crisp snap, releasing a burst of sour-sweet juice that dances on your tongue at first pure bliss, or so it seems, the texture melting into a chewy centre that's almost too vibrant, too alive. But then the irony uncoils like a snake in the grass, that initial delight curdling into a creeping discomfort as a metallic tang seeps in, your tongue going numb and tingly, like you'd licked a battery terminal. These glowing greens are laced with arsenic for that eye-popping colour, a deadly dye that turned treats into tiny time bombs, zapping kids with cramps or worse in the 1850s sweet shops. Ironic as all, get out the brighter the candy, the closer to the edge, a confectioner's joke, where paradise green leads straight to hell's doorstep, all for the sake of selling more. And the absurd part, those gobstoppers, the rock-hard spheres in the jar next to yours, were tough enough that savvy urchins chucked them at stray dogs for defence, saving a few hides from Bites candy as ammo, turning a sugar rush into street survival gear. Your mouth burns now. the sour acidity blooming into a fiery prickle that spreads to your gums, the texture shifting from crisp to a gritty residue that sticks like glue, making every swallow a chore. Discomfort flares hot, your head swimming with a fuzzy haze, that queasy pie in your belly joining the fray in a symphony of revolt, empathy surging for the other tykes around you, their faces lit with innocent glee as they suck away. Oblivious to the poison party, the stall buzzes with energy, jars lining the shelves like a rainbow of temptation, their glass facades catching the sun in prismatic sparkles that make the greens inside shimmer like illicit treasures, a forbidden hoard in this grey world. You glance down, your tongue now a vivid neon blue-green from the dye peeking out in the reflection of a nearby puddle, slick and unnatural under the dappled light, while the kids cluster closer, their laughter ringing out in high, carefree peals, shadows playing tricks on their joyful faces that hint at the maudlin underbelly. The vendors' hands move like clockwork, scooping more sweets with fingers sticky and flour-dusted, the air thick with that sugary perfume now turning cloying, a sweet fog that masks the subtle chemical bite underneath. Your own hands, dusted with candy grit, flex as you pocket the rest, the hard edges digging into your palm like tiny accusations. Historians wrangle over these chemical dyes endlessly. Was it the spark that fueled the industrial sweet boom, letting factories churn out colours that hooked the masses and lined pockets during the Victorian rush, or a straight-up child killer, dooming innocent bellies to twist in agony and sparking the first big pushes for food laws? It's got that ring to the scandals over red dye no dios 2 in America back in the 70s, banned after it was linked to cancer risks in lab rats. A debate that pitted big candy cores against health crusaders, much like the underdog fight you're in right now. And today it's a dead ringer for those Halloween treats stateside, loaded with artificial colours that rev kids up into hyperactivity whirlwinds, leaving parents fretting over FDA watch lists and the long-term buzz crash sweet fun with a side of science gone wrong. The jar of greens looms in your mind's eye, its contents swirling like a potion in a witch's brew, the light refracting off the glass to paint eerie patterns on the stall's worn wood, while the children's shadows stretch long and playful, yet somehow spectral in the afternoon slant. That inner discomfort deepens into a throbbing ache, your mouth a battlefield of tingling nerves and metallic aftertaste, the candy's chew turning to a pasty sludge that coats everything, head fogging like you've inhaled too much fog from the Thames. Irony swirls in your thoughts. Sharp and mocking, you've revived that penny of hope through a buddy's share, chasing a moment of kid-like joy amid the grind, only to find it's laced with the city's venom, the sweet relief, just another ironic trap for the unwary. Empathy wells up strong for these little ones around you, their wide eyes and sticky fingers a mirror to your own past innocence. All of you bound in this shared delusion of delight, laughing through the latent horror. The stall's counter feels sticky under your elbow as you lean in for another, the wood's grain rough and worn smooth in spots from countless hands. The vendor's grin unwavering as he tallies his take. You watch a younger kid nearby, his face alight with unbridled glee as he crunches a gobstopper, the hard shell echoing like gunfire in the quiet between shouts, shadows dancing merrily, but with an undercurrent of the uncanny, like ghosts at a candy party. The sensory storm rages on the candy's scent, now a cloying veil over the street's underbelly smells, that fruity zing souring into something acrid, your tongue throbbing with each pulse of your heartbeat, the texture a relentless grit that demands more spit than you've got. Discomfort morphs into a weary sarcasm, that underdog voice in your head chuckling, yeah, joy in a jar, if joy means trading your taste buds for a ticket to tummy trouble. But there's power in the sharing too, that penny of hope passed hand to hand like a baton in a relay, building empathy into a quiet strength amid the kids' chorus of mms and ahs. The visual feast unfolds the jar's emerald glow, casting verdant hues on your skin, your neon-tinted tongue flicking out involuntarily. The group of urchins, faces smeared with colour, their laughter bubbling up as shadows lengthen playfully, yet laced with a haunting whimsy. You tuck the last drops away, the hard candies clinking like tiny bells of warning, and step back, the discomfort a constant hum but the irony fueling your resolve in this poisoned city. Even poison comes wrapped in pretty paper, a lesson wrapped in laughter for underdogs like you. That haze in your head clears a fraction as you wander from the stall, the kids' voices trailing off into the afternoon din, but the metallic tang lingers, a badge of the brush with bliss-turned betrayal. Empathy lingers too, a soft undercurrent to the discomfort, binding you to these fleeting friends in the fight, the penny of hope's revival a small victory in the sweet war. The streets stretch ahead, jars colours fading in your periphery, but the memory sticks vivid, vibrant, and viciously ironic. That neon tingle from the green drops still dances on your tongue like an unwelcome guest as you slip away from the sweet stall. The kids' laughter echoing faintly behind you like a distant echo of innocence lost. Your revived penny of hope now tucked safe, but your inside's a whirlwind of sour regret. The afternoon sun hangs low in the smoggy sky, casting long shadows that stretch across the cobbles like accusing fingers, and you weave through the thinning crowds toward a quieter corner of the market, where the real underdogs gather away from the flashy stalls, into the nooks where secrets and scraps get traded. It's got that vibe of those hidden speakeasies during Prohibition back home, where folks swapped whispers and hooch under the radar, turning desperation into a gritty camaraderie. But here in 1852 London, your speakeasy is just a pile of discarded crates by a forgotten wall, the air turning musty with the scent of old paper and damp stone. Discomfort simmers in your core, that ironic twist tightening like a noose you've chased joy in candy colours, only to find it laced with the city's spite, your mouth a battlefield of metallic afterburn that has you hawking spit every few steps. The texture of the street underfoot shifts to uneven gravel, sharp pebbles jabbing through your thin soles, a constant prick that mirrors the building tension in your gut, like the poisoned city itself is prodding you onward. You spot it then, half buried under a crate, a crumpled newspaper from last week, its pages yellowed and ink smeared, fluttering slightly in the breeze like a beckoning ghost. Curiosity pulls you in, that underdog instinct for any edge, and you snatch it up. The paper's rough edges scraping your palms like sandpaper, the faint, musty smell of newsprint mixed with river damp rising to your nose. Flipping through, your eyes snag on a grainy sketch of a stern-faced man, Frederick Ackham, the chemist who's been making waves with his tell-all book on food poisons, his gaze piercing even in black and white, like he's staring right through the page at you. You hold the paper close, the penny of a hope now a key to knowledge in your mind. But as you read, the words whisper warnings from Ackham, the hero prosecuted for exposing the truth, raiding libraries for samples to prove the baker's and butcher's sins. It's a shock, this meeting with the man himself through faded print, his story unfolding like a thriller he got hauled in for theft after borrowing books to back his claims, turning a fight for safe eats into a courtroom circus that lit a fire under the public, even if it didn't flip the laws overnight. The irony crashes over you like a wave from the Thames that Candy's glow suddenly makes sense. A deadly shimmer straight out of Ackham's nightmare ledger, where sweets weren't just fun but fortified with toxins to dazzle the eye and doom the eater. Tension builds fast, your heart thumping harder as the article details his takedowns of arsenic in greens and leaden loaves, a one-man war against the adulterators who spiked everything for profit. But here's the absurd tidbit that'd make even a speakeasy storyteller chuckle. Pickled eggs, those preserved gems in jars, were sometimes brined in vinegar brewed from spoiled ale, sparking hallucinations that had kids seeing street ghosts like some proto-LSD trip, convinced the cobblestones were marching, or the fog-held whispering spirits a pickled vision quest gone wrong, turning a snack into a spectral sideshow. Your mind races with discomfort, that earlier tingle from the drops amplifying into a full-body buzz, irony biting deep. You've been playing with fire all day, and Ackham's words feel like a late-night warning from beyond. His book, a beacon that got him sued but sowed the seeds for change, even if the poisons kept flowing for years. Drawn by the article's fire, you glance around and spot a nearby pickle stall, its owner a shady type with a squint and a jar-laden cart that reeks of vinegar sharp enough to strip paint. The penny of hope. You fish it out one last time, trading it for a twist of pickled eggs, the glass jar handed over with a greasy cloth, its contents bobbing in cloudy brine that sloshes with a viscous glug. The eggs feel rubbery through the glass, pale orbs suspended like specimens in a mad scientist's lab, and the scent assaults you immediately, tart and pungent, like overripe fruit gone feral, undercut by a boozy funk from that dubious vinegar brew. Tension coils tighter as you crack the lid. The brine's acrid vapour stinging your eyes like smoke from a bad cigar. Tears welling up unbidden. You fish one out with grubby fingers, the egg's surface slick and yielding, textured like overcooked gum that squishes under pressure, and pop it into your mouth, the salty tang exploding first, followed by a vinegary burn that sears your throat. But oh, the horror unfolds in a rush, that initial crunch giving way to a mushy interior that's off too soft, too strange, the texture collapsing into a slimy paste that coats your mouth like glue from hell. Discomfort erupts into full-blown nausea, your stomach roiling like a storm-tossed sea, cramps twisting sharp as you clutch at your middle, the jar slipping from your grasp to clatter on the ground, brine spilling in a pungent puddle that soaks your boots. Irony floods your thoughts. Sarcastic and stinging you've met come through his warnings, only to tempt fate with one of his prime examples. The pickled egg a ticking bomb that nearly does you in, your vision blurring as the hallucination kicks in faintly shadows on the wall, twisting like ghosts from the street. Whispers in the wind that sound like the chemist's voice urging caution. Empathy surges for the countless kids who've keeled over from such innocent jars, their underdog dreams cut short by a single bite. While you double over, face paling under the gas lamp's flicker, the world spinning in a haze of green-tinted regret from the sweets. The stall's visual chaos sharpens in your faltering sight the jar's eggs, floating eerily in their murky bath. Bubbles rising like sinister omens from the depths. The newspaper clutched in your other hand. Akam's stern portrait staring out from the yellowed page, ink smudged but unyielding. And you, doubled up against the cart, cheeks drained of colour, the gaslight casting eerie shadows that dance like accusatory spectres on the surrounding walls. The smell intensifies, that vinegary assault now mingled with your own sour sweat, the texture of the egg's remnants a cloying film in your mouth that you can't quite spit out, every heave threatening to bring it all back up. Tension peaks, heart hammering like a drum in a ghost story, the horror of near-miss poisoning mixing with sarcasm about your lucky encounter. Akam, the prosecuted hero. His book, a scandal that ruffled feathers but didn't stop the flow until years later. His raids on libraries for evidence turning him into a folk legend of the fight against filth. Debate rages in the history circles over Akam's real punch did his explosive exposé, with its wild claims backed by lab tests, spark immediate laws to clean up the food chain. Or was it more a slow burn, awakening the masses to the adulteration plague without toppling the system right away? It's viral stuff, that underdog whistleblower vibe, paralleling Upton Sinclair's The Jungle in America, where his meat-packing horrors lit the fuse for the Pure Food Act of 1906, turning public outrage into regulatory gold, both men risking it all to expose the rot. Their stories the stuff of modern memes about corporate greed. And today it's like those FDA insiders blowing the lid on GMOs and additives, fighting for transparency in a world of lab-grown eats, tapping that American spirit of independence where one voice can rally the masses against the machine. The spilled brine pools at your feet, its surface shimmering with oily iridescence under the lamp, eggs rolling free like escaped prisoners, while your grip tightens on the paper. Akam's image a beacon in the dim, your belly heaving in waves that feel like a tempest inside. That inner turmoil twists harder, discomfort morphing into raw tension, the ironic laugh bubbling up through the pain. Here you are, young Jack. Befriending a hero via ragtag newsprint, only to flirt with disaster on his watch. The pickled egg's gift, nearly sending you to join the ghosts he fought to save. Empathy crashes in waves for the underdogs he's championed, those faceless victims of the sweet and savoury scams, their resilience the true legacy. The cart's wood creaks under your weight as you steady yourself, the vendor's squint turning to mild concern. But you wave him off, the gas lamp's flames sputtering softly, casting your pallid face in flickering orange hues that highlight the sweat beading on your brow. Sensory overload grips you, the brine's sharp sting in your nostrils, the slimy residue clinging to your teeth like a curse, your stomach's churn a thunderous roar in the quiet corner. Sarcasm laces the horror, hero's warning, indeed thanks for the near-death thrill, Mr. Akam. But there's insight in the agony. a spark of resilience that whispers you've survived worse. The penny of hope's essence now knowledge, turning poison into power. The scene etches in your mind, the yellowed newsprint fluttering in your grasp. Occam's portrait, a stern sentinel amid the ink. The jar's remnants. Eggs bobbing in the spilled brine like drowned moons. Foam bubbling up lazily, and you, huddled and ashen. The lamp's glow outlining your form in a halo of desperation, shadows lengthening as the day wanes. Tension holds you in its grip, but that underdog fire flickers brighter. The irony of the enlightening egg, a catalyst for sarcasm, tinged strength in this poisoned city. Even a brush with the brink builds the grit to keep going. You fold the paper carefully, tucking it inside your shirt next to the warmth of your chest. The rough edge is a talisman now, and push off the cart. Legs shaky but steps forward. The discomfort a fading echo as empathy for Occam's fight fuels your resolve. The vendor mutters something, but you're already moving, the gaslight receding behind you like a stage left. The climax of your day hanging in the balance. Resilience rising from the ruins. That ghostly tingle from the pickled egg still echoes in your veins like a faint, mocking aftershock as you stumble from the quiet corner. The crumpled newspaper with Occam's face tucked under your arm like a talisman against the madness. Your legs wobbling from the near miss, but that underdog fire pushing you back into the fray. The afternoon market's pulse quickens now. The stalls a riot of colour and clamour as the sun dips lower, casting everything in a hazy, golden filter that belies the undercurrents of chaos brewing. Your penny of hope, it slipped from your pocket in the scramble, clattering to the cobbles amid the spilled brine, a heartbreaking loss that hits like a gut punch. But in this whirlwind, it's just fuel for the next hustle. The air thickens with the mingled scents of frying fats and overripe fruits, a heady stew that turns your stomach anew. The discomfort from the egg's burn flaring up like embers stirred by the wind. Irony stabs deep here. You've met a hero through his warnings, clutching his legacy like a shield, only to plunge right back into the poisoned city's heart, where every corner hides a fresh betrayal, your body a battlefield for the day's accumulated poisons. The crowd surges around you, bodies pressing in with the sweat-soaked urgency of the working day winding down. And that's when the scandal erupts like a thunderclap in a teacup over by the pie stalls. Shouts ring out, drawing eyes from every direction. You push closer, newspaper crinkling in your grip, heart racing as constables in stiff blue uniforms haul a vendor away, his cart overturned in the scuffle, pies spilling across the mud like fallen soldiers. Caught red-handed with rat in the mix, one Bobby bellows, and the mob gasps, a wave of murmurs rippling through like wildfire. Amid the chaos, your penny of hope lies forgotten in the dirt, trampled underfoot, but the unfolding drama yanks you in, a vortex of shouts and shoves that has you elbowing for a view. The vendor, a wiry man with wild eyes and flower-streaked cheeks, thrashes in their grasp, protesting innocence while the crowd jeers, the irony crashing over you like a cold wave. Here's the poisoned city laying bare its sins, right in front of your eyes. Occam's warnings springing to life in this very moment, his legacy whispering that the toxins aren't just in the fillings, they're woven into the whole rotten system. Tension skyrockets as you spot a stray pie rolling toward your feet, its crust cracked open from the tumble, steam still wisping faintly from the exposed innards. Hunger overrides sense that underdog drive kicking in hard, and you snatch it up. The pastry warm and flaky in your hands despite the mayhem, its golden top glistening with what might be egg wash or just market grime. The smell hits you first, a savoury rush of pepper and meaty gravy that cuts through the surrounding stink of spilled brine and sweat, tempting despite the knot in your gut. You take a hasty bite, the crust shattering with a buttery crunch that yields to a dense, gristly filling, chewy strands pulling at your teeth like overcooked boot leather. But then the horror peaks, that initial warmth turning to a churning dread as you chew the textures all wrong, tough and fibrous with an unnatural snap, and a faint, gamey funk blooms on your tongue, metallic and off-putting, like biting into something that's scurried rather than grazed. Discomfort explodes into full-blown agony, your belly seizing up in violent spasms, the pie's mystery meat revealing itself in a wave of nausea that has you doubling over, retching into the dirt as the crowd's roar fades to a distant hum. Irony floods your mind, sharp and sardonic amid the pain, this hot pie, The vendor's pride just moments ago, now a steaming betrayal that flips your insides like a bad bet at the races, a feast from history that's more curse than comfort. And the absurd kicker. Some pies in those days were stuffed with Napoleon-era buttons, sewn from old cloth scraps during wartime shortages, turning the filling dinatch like forgotten relics, chewy surprises that left eaters wondering if they'd chowed down on history or hazard a wartime hack that lingered into peacetime scandals, making every bite a potential time capsule of tough luck. Your vision blurs as cramps rack you, the pie's remnants a pasty sludge in your mouth, gritty with unseen bits that scrape like sand, the smell now souring in your nostrils to something rancid, like roadkill warmed over. Fear grips you tight, heart pounding like a drum in a ghost hunt, that underdog resilience tested to the breaking point as you collapse to your knees, hands clutching your middle in the swirling dust kicked up by the scuffle. The scene unfolds in vivid, nightmarish clarity, the vendor dragged off by burly constables through the throng, his face twisted in defiance amid the jeers, the cart's contents splayed across the cobbles like a battlefield of crust and filling, the pie in your grasp splitting further as you heave, exposing a small, rodent-like form amid the grey mush, whiskers and all, a grotesque reveal under the slanting sun, and you, young Jack, crumpling to the ground, arms wrapped around your midsection in the chaotic press of bodies, faces blurring into a sea of shock and disgust around you. The air vibrates with the mob's energy, shouts of rat pie filth, mingling with the wet smack of your retching, the texture of the ground hard and unyielding against your knees, mud seeping through your trousers in cold, clammy patches. Sensory overload crashes in the pie's greasy warmth, cooling to a slick film on your lips, the metallic tang of the meat mingling with bile's bitterness, your skin prickling with sweat despite the evening chill creeping in. That inner fear escalates, a primal terror of the unknown churning with the literal upheaval in your gut. But sarcasm slices through the panic. Hot pie, more like a hot mess from the history books, thanks for the flip system. Empathy surges for the vendor too, in a twisted way, another underdog caught in the grind, his hustle exposed while the real culprits upstairs sip clean tea. The constable's boots thud past, kicking up dust that stings your eyes, the pie's remnants smeared on the stones like evidence of your folly. The crowd's faces a mosaic of horror and morbid fascination, shadows lengthening as the sun dips, turning the whole tableau into a dramatic tableau of Victorian vice. Debate swirls in your fevered thoughts. Linking back to Occam's shadow, did scandals like this pie bust, echoing his exposés, actually pave the way for the Adulteration Act of 1860, forcing the powers that be to clamp down on the cheats? Or were they just fleeting tempests? Temporary shocks that died down without real teeth until public outrage built slow. It's got that viral edge, paralleling the pink slime meat scandals in America, where ground beef fillers sparked nationwide boycotts and FDA probes in the 2010s. A modern meat mess that had folks ditching burgers for transparency, both eras' underdog roars against the industrial beast. And now, it's straight out of school lunch mystery meat nightmares in the States. Those dubious patties served up to kids that taste like regret and spark endless memes about what lurks inside, tapping that shared parental dread of hidden hazards in the everyday chow. The overturned cart looms in your peripheral vision. Pies crushed underfoot into mushy piles that squelch with each step. The vendor's shouts fading as he's hauled away. The constable's badges glinting like false justice in the light. Your body rebels harder, the grisly chew echoing in your throat as another wave hits. Vomit rising hot and acrid, splattering the cobbles with a texture that's chunky and unforgiving. The smell of half-digested eel and candy turning the air foul around you. Fear peaks, a cold sweat breaking out as you gasp for breath. The irony a bitter pill clutching Occam's paper like a lifeline, only to star in your own scandal. The mystery meat, a perfect storm of the day's sins. But that underdog spark flickers, sarcasm fueling the fight. System's got jokes, but I'm still standing. Sorta. The crowd thins a bit, faces peering down with a mix of pity and disgust, their shadows engulfing you like judgmental giants. The mud's chill seeping into your bones as you huddle. Newspaper sodden now from the spill. Visuals sear into your memory the vendor's wild thrash as ropes bind him, dragged through the press like a fallen king. the pie's guts spilling out, that tiny rat form stark against the grey filling, tail curled in eternal surprise, and you, sprawled in the dirt, hands clamped over your belly in the milling chaos, faces looming above in a halo of torchlight as evening falls, the scene a pinnacle of dramatic dread. Tension holds you in thrall, the fear visceral and immediate, but the sarcasm cuts through. A wry undercurrent to the horror in this climax of calamity. You've got front row seats to the poisoned city's unmasking, Ackham's legacy alive in the uproar. Your breaths come ragged, the cobble's rough texture biting into your palms as you push up, the drama viral in its intensity, empathy for the fallen vendor mingling with your own agony. The day's peak a brutal lesson in survival's sharp edges. The shouts die down, constables barking orders as the cart's cleared, pies scraped into a heap that steams mockingly. The rats form a centerpiece of infamy. You stagger to your feet, newspaper clutched like a vow, the discomfort a roaring fire, but the irony a cooling balm. Feast indeed, one for the history books. The crowd disperses, shadows swallowing the scene, but the fear lingers, sharp and unforgettable. Your underdog heart pounding with the thrill of having witnessed and survived the scandal's heart. The chaos of the pie scandal still rings in your ears like a fading echo as you stagger away from the market's frenzy. The newspaper with Ackham's stern gaze now a sodden weight against your chest, clutched like a lifeline amid the evening's creeping chill. Your legs feel like lead, the day's poisons that rat-laced pie churning with the milk's ghost and candy's bite building, to a crescendo that has you weaving through the dimming streets. The cobblestones slick underfoot with the first hints of dusk's dew, their uneven texture jabbing at your soles like accusatory fingers. The penny of hope, lost in the scuffle, is now just a memory, a faint jingle in your mind's ear, but that underdog grit carries you homeward, to the ramshackle lean-to you call shelter, tucked in a forgotten alley where the walls lean like weary old-timers. Discomfort has evolved into a full-throated roar, your belly a tempest of cramps and queasiness, that ironic undercurrent bubbling up you've survived the day's scandals, newspaper in hand like some pint-sized crusader, only to face the real reckoning in solitude. The poisoned city's parting gift a private hell that Ackham himself might have warned against, his words now haunting you as surely as the toxins do. Pushing through the sagging door more a ragged curtain of sacking than proper wood, you collapse onto the straw-strewn floor of your home, a cramped nook with walls patched in cardboard and rags. The air stagnant and heavy with the musty scent of unwashed linens and lingering smoke from a long-dead fire. The texture of the straw prickles through your thin shirt, rough and pokey like a bed of needles, offering no comfort as you curl into a ball, knees to chest, the newspaper crinkling softly beside you like a whispered confession. Night falls fast in this poisoned city, the single candle stub you light sputtering to life with a match's sharp sulphur smell, its flame dancing erratically and casting jittery shadows that leap across the walls like playful demons. Tension coils tighter than ever, your body betraying you with a fresh onslaught, the formaldehyde from that morning milk, amplified by the pie's foul load, unleashing hallucinations that blur the line between reality and nightmare. Your vision swims, the room tilting as phantom shapes emerge from the corners, whispers slithering through the air like Ackham's voice murmuring. The toxins are the enemy, but your will is the weapon. His warnings from the page now alive in the ether, a spectral guide or tormentor in your fevered state. Fear grips you like icy fingers, heart hammering against your ribs as the cramps hit full force, a stabbing pain like knives twisting in your gut, sharp and unrelenting, waves of nausea rolling through you that leave you gasping, sweat breaking out cold and clammy on your skin, soaking your shirt to a sticky second layer. The irony slices through the terror. Sarcastic and raw, you've clutched that penny of hope all day like a charm, revived it through mates and mishaps, only for it to vanish in the scandal's dust, leaving you here to wrestle ghosts alone. Ackham's legacy a cruel joke, his exposé sparking awareness but not stopping the slow poison that now ravages you from within. Absurd as it sounds, those Victorian kids dosed on arsenic sweets didn't just cramp up. Some swore they saw street spirits, convinced the alley phantoms were chatting back, turning a sugar high into a poisoned dreamscape, where cobblestones danced and fog faces leered a hallucinatory lark that had parents blaming overactive imaginations instead of the candy maker's greed. Your own haze deepens. The candles wax dripping in slow, viscous blobs onto the floor, their warm splats echoing like distant rain. The flames glow, illuminating the newspaper's folds where Ackham's portrait seems to smirk, eyes following your every writhe. Empathy crashes in amid the fear, a profound ache for the underdogs like you who've weathered these invisible wars, their bodies battlegrounds for the era's sins, resilience forged in the fire of forgotten scandals, kids curling up in similar hovels, guts twisting while the world spun on oblivious. The room's visuals sharpen in your delirium the lean-to's dim confines, with the candle's flame leaping like a wild heartbeat, shadows twisting into elongated arms that reach from the walls, mimicking the agony of countless others. You, balled up on the prickly straw, face contorted in pain, cheeks flushed and slick with sweat, brows knit in a mask of torment, and the hallucinations materializing as ghostly figures from Ackham's book. Spectral bakers and vendors with hollow eyes and poisoned hands, emerging from the newsprint like vapours from a genie's bottle, their forms translucent and mocking under the flickering light. The smell intensifies, that sulphur tang from the match blending with the sour reek of your own bile rising, the air thick and oppressive, clinging to your lungs like a damp shroud, while the straw's coarse fibres dig into your side, a relentless itch that amplifies every cramp. That inner fear escalates, a visceral dread of the unknown twisting with the physical torment, your breaths coming in ragged gasps as another spasm rips through, vision blurring to spots of black and green, the candy's dye haunting even your haze. Sarcasm creeps in, a bitter lifeline. Dreams of hell, courtesy of the milkman, thanks for the show. Ackham, your warnings make great bedtime reading. But beneath it, reflection stirs faintly, the peak of this nightmare forcing a raw insight in the underdog's world. Poisons like this aren't just body blows, they're the slow grind that builds unbreakable will, turning victims into survivors who outlast the system. The candle gutters low, wax pooling in warm, sticky rivulets that seep into the straw, their texture gooey and cooling fast. The flames dance, casting your curled form in stark relief, a lone figure in the encroaching dark. Empathy deepens for the era's silent sufferers, those whose resilience are come championed, their stories etched in the very poisons that tried to claim them, a quiet heroism that echoes in your own fight. Historical debates rage on about adulteration's long shadow. Did Ackham's stirrings ignite a health revolution that curbed the epidemics dragging into the 1860s, with cholera and typhus claiming thousands from tainted tables? Or was it a half measure, awakening consciences but leaving the poor to bear the brunt until laws caught up? It's a viral thread, that underdog battle against systemic poison, mirroring the lead crisis in Flint, Michigan, where government neglect turned tap water into a toxin cocktail, sparking debates on accountability that still echo in courtrooms and headlines both fights, highlighting how the vulnerable pay the price for oversight's failures. And in the now, it's uncannily like America's opioid epidemic, where safe pills from Big Pharma hooked millions on a promise of relief, only to unleash addiction's hell, empathy surging for the families navigating that underdog nightmare of withdrawal and loss. Much like your curled torment here, the room spins slower now, the hallucinations fading to wisps, ghostly vendors dissolving into shadow play from the candle. Ackham's portrait a steady anchor on the page, your face easing from its grimace as the cramps ebb, sweat drying to a salty crust on your skin. The sensory barrage eases fractionally, the bile's bitter aftertaste lingering like a bad wine. The straws prickle a dull throb against your side, the air's mustiness now a familiar blanket rather than a chokehold. Fear recedes into a dull hum, empathy for your fellow underdogs swelling like a tide. Those kids seeing street ghosts from arsenic dreams, their poison reveries are absurd escape turned tragic, resilience blooming from the ashes of agony. Irony lingers, a wry companion, clutching hope's memory while the city flips my guts, classic underdog plot twist. Reflection dawns softly, the peak's pain forging clarity toxins rage, but will endures. Ackham's fight a spark in your own, turning this night's hell into a testament to grit. The candle sputters its last, plunging the lean-to into deeper dark, the straw's texture a rough cradle as you uncurl slightly, breath steadying, the newspaper's edges soft against your cheek. Visuals etch the climax, the dim hovel with the dying flame's shadows writhing like inner demons. You, fetal on the floor, features twisted in anguish, sweat-sheened skin catching the final glow, hallucinations as Occam's bookish spectres, fading wisps from the page, their forms dissolving into the encroaching night. That blend of empathy and fear settles into a poignant hush, the discomfort's roar fading to whispers, sarcasm, a gentle prod toward reflection in this poisoned city. Even hallucinations whisper of strength, the underdog's true weapon. The alley outside quiets, wind sighing through cracks like a lullaby for the weary, your body aching but unbroken, the day's poisons a badge of battles won. Resilience rises, quiet and profound, as sleep tugs at the edges, the irony of it all a soft, knowing smile in the dark surviving the flip to claim your story, as the hallucinations from the night's torment finally ebb away like retreating fog, leaving you drenched in sweat and shaky on the straw floor of your lean-to. A faint knock rattles the sacking door, soft but insistent, pulling you from the brink of that fevered void. The candle's long snuffed out, but moonlight filters through cracks in the walls, casting silvery slivers that dance across the room like hesitant allies. You groan, every muscle aching from the cramped siege, that discomfort a dull throb now, like a bruise that's tender but survivable. The irony settling in with a wry twist you've clawed through the poisoned city's worst, newspaper talisman in hand, only to realize true underdog strength isn't solo, it's the crew that drags you back from the edge, pushing up on elbows that feel like jelly, the straw's prickly texture scraping your skin one last time. You rasp out a "who's there?" and the curtain parts to reveal your mates from the streets. A ragtag bunch of fellow urchins slipping in like shadows, their faces etched with concern under the pale glow. They've come bearing scraps, a hunk of bread scavenged from a late-night baker's toss-out, passed hand to hand with murmurs of, "Hold on, Jack, what we got ya?" One of them, little Tim with his gap-toothed grin, fishes a battered penny from his pocket, your penny of hope, revived and shared like a sacred relic, warm from his grimy fist as he presses it into your palm. "Found it in the market mud after the bust, figured you'd need it for round 2, he says, and the group crowds closer, forming a circle around the small fire they've kindled in a tin can, flames crackling softly with scavenged twigs that snap and pop, filling the air with a woody, smoky scent that's clean and grounding after the night's bile-tainted haze. Empathy blooms warm in your chest, chasing away the last wisps of fear, that underdog bond wrapping around you like a threadbare blanket, these kids, no richer than you, turning their own scraps into solidarity. The penny of hope spreading like that tiny blaze, flickering brighter with each shared glance. The bread's handed over next, a dry loaf that's tough as old leather on the outside, but as you tear into it, the crumbly interior yields with a satisfying give, its wheaty smell rising faint and comforting, a far cry from the poisoned feasts of the day. Ironic humour bubbles up through the lingering discomfort, a light chuckle escaping despite the ache this crew's poor as church mice, scraping by on the city's cast-offs, but they're rich in the know-how of dodging death thanks to whispers from Occam's tales circulating like contraband. They've turned into pint-sized chemists, testing bites with a tongue trial before committing, licking a sliver to gauge the burn or buzz, like mini-mad scientists straight out of his scandalous pages. Absurd as it gets, one kid once swore a tongue test on a dodgy sweet revealed it as rat-flavoured rocket fuel, sparking a fit of giggles that ended with the whole gang heaving from laughter instead of poison a flavour fiasco that saved them from a bad batch, turning potential tummy trouble into a street legend of survival smarts. Your mouth waters at the bread's plainness, the texture coarse and grainy as you chew, crumbs flaking onto your lap like dry snow. But the warmth from the shared fire seeps in, easing the gut's protest with a soothing familiarity, the smoky aroma wrapping around you like an old friend's hug. Discomfort fades a notch, that initial post-night agony softening into a manageable hum, irony lacing the relief you've been flipped inside out by the day's dregs. Yet here, in this huddle, the penny of hope multiplies, turning individual hell into collective healing. The group settles in, knees knocking in the tight space, the fire's glow painting their faces in orange flickers that highlight weary smiles and dirt-smudged cheeks, shadows playing tag on the patched walls like playful guardians. Tim passes the bread your way again, his small hand steady despite the chill, the loaf's crust rough under your fingers, breaking with a soft crack that echoes the fire's pops. Heard about the pie bust rough go, eh? But Ackham's got the right of it. We got to sniff him out like he did. Another mate chimes in, a girl named Sal with braids like twisted ropes, her voice a soft lilt as she recounts bits from the newspaper's lore, mimicking the chemist's stern tone with a kid's flair. You nod, chewing slowly, the bread's dry chew giving way to a subtle warmth that spreads down your throat, chasing the night's shadows with each swallow, the texture a comforting grind that grounds you in the moment. Empathy swells fuller now, a deep welling for these faces around the flames underdogs all, bound by the street's brutal lessons, their kindness a balm that turns fear's chill to something almost cozy, the shared penny of hope, a symbol of how we lift each other when the city tries to drag us down. Modern echoes ring clear in your weary thoughts, this huddle straight out of those Great Depression soup kitchens back in America, where lines of folks in threadbare coats shared watery stew and stories around barrel fires, turning communal hardship into a thread of humanity that kept spirits afloat amid the bread lines and bank runs, underdogs pooling pennies and pride to weather the storm. And today, it's like those urban community gardens in U.S. cities, where neighbours trade homegrown veggies and tips on spotting store-bought scams, fostering that same resilient web against food deserts and corporate cheats. A modern underdog alliance where shared knowledge beats isolation every time. The fire crackles louder, embers glowing red-hot as a twig snaps, sending sparks dancing upward like tiny stars, the smoky scent intensifying to a comforting heartiness that masks the lean-to's damp must, while the bread's crumbs scatter across the floor, their fine, powdery feel dusting your fingers like faint snow. Your gut quiets further, the warmth from the loaf and the group's chatter, a gentle tide washing away the discomfort, irony softening to a fond smirk. Poison City flips us, but we flip back together a come to prove of our street lab. Visuals weave the scene into memory, the cluster of kids huddled tight around the tin can blaze in the narrow alley nook, flames licking high to illuminate their circle of faces, eyes reflecting the fire's dance with a mix of mischief and care, the bread making its rounds under the moon's pale watch, hands passing it like a ritual chalice, crust flaking in the glow, and you, young Jack, with a tired smile cracking your features, shadows from the fire playing across your sweat-dried skin. The group's warmth casting a halo that pushes back the night's encroaching dark. Sensory details ground it all, the bread's hearty, slightly stale chew yielding to a subtle nutty flavour that coats your tongue without the day's bite. The fire's smoky embrace warming your chilled bones. The straw's faint rustle under shifting bodies a soft underscore to the low voices. Empathy deepens into a chill calm, the fear from the night's peak dissolving in the shared glow, transitioning to a serene bond that eases you toward rest, the penny of hope's essence alive in their gestures, a quiet victory over the solitude of suffering, as the talk turns to safer picks. Sniff the pie steam first, lads, like Ackham taught. You feel the shift, that underdog circle a fortress against the poisoned city's barbs. The bread's last bite a simple anchor pulling you from the edge. Irony lingers lightly now, a humorous footnote. We may be broke, but we're loaded with know-how who needs gold when you've got gut checks. The fire dims to embers, the group's chatter fading to yawns, the moon's light filtering in like a gentle curtain call. Discomfort's fully ebbed, replaced by a chill empathy that wraps you snug. The shared penny of hope, a beacon in the quiet, turning the night's ordeal into a tale of togetherness. You lean back, straw cradling your head, the warmth lingering long after the flames, reflection stirring softly in this crew. Survival's not just enduring, it's thriving. One shared scrap at a time. The alley outside hushes, wind sighing through the cracks like a lullaby. The group's forms blurring into the shadows as sleep tugs, their presence a shield against the dark. Visuals seal the moment the fire's dying glow on the huddled forms, faces soft in repose with smiles etched in firelight. The penny passed back to you, glinting under the moon as breadcrumbs dust the circle, and your own expression, weary but warmed, shadows softening the edges of the group in harmonious unity. The chill settles in, a peaceful hush, Empathy, the bridge from fear to tranquility. The night's challenges faced and faded in the glow of connection. The fire's embers have died to a soft red glow in the tin can. The group snores a gentle rhythm in the lean-to as you slip out into the cooling night. That shared penny of hope now back in your pocket. A quiet revival from Tim's find. Warm against your thigh like a promise of tomorrow's gambles. The alley's shadows swallow you whole, but the night's not done with its tricks. Word spread fast about the big fairground down by the docks. A whirlwind of lights and laughter, where even us urchins can snag a thrill on the cheap. Much like those Depression-era carnivals back home, where families scrape dimes for rides and cotton candy to forget the breadlines for a spell. Your gut's still tender from the day's flip, a low discomfort humming like an old engine, but the penny's weight pulls you toward the distant hum of music and merriment. The streets alive with folks streaming past, their chatter a buzz that drowns the night's chill. Irony tugs at you already, you've huddled with mates for solace, bread shared like a sacrament, only to chase the fair's false joys, where fun for all often means traps for the likes of us. Occam's warnings from the newspaper echoing in your head like a nagging conscience. The fairground bursts into view as you round the corner, a riot of colour and clamour under strings of lanterns that sway like drunken stars, their warm orange light spilling over tents and stalls in a kaleidoscope of reds and golds. The air hits you first, thick and intoxicating with the caramelised sweetness of toffee apples bubbling on open flames, mingled with the greasy pop of frying dough and the faint animal tang from the sideshow beasts. Your boots sink into the trampled grass, soft and muddy from the day's crowds, the texture squishy and yielding underfoot, sucking at your heels like the fair itself wants to pull you in deeper. Amid the whirl of laughter and calliope tunes, you spot the toffee stall, a wooden booth draped in faded bunting. The vendor, a rotund woman with flowery hands dipping apples into vats of molten sugar that bubble and hiss like a witch's cauldron. Kids swarm it, eyes wide with that pure kid hunger gleam, and you edge closer, penny of hope at the ready, the scent wrapping around you like a sticky embrace sweet and burnt, promising escape from the lean-to's chill. But as the crowd parts, irony coils tight in your chest, that initial pull of temptation curdling into sharp discomfort. The apples gleam like polished rubies, their toffee shells glossy and hard. But you remember Occam's page colours too, vivid hide the cheats, syrup spiked with dodgy dyes to make 'em shine brighter, turning treats into ticking hazards. Your hand hovers over the penny, the metal cool and reassuring in your palm, whispering caution like a street-smart pal, and you pull back just as a younger kid nearby bites in with glee, the shell cracking loud under his teeth. Tension spikes as he chomps deeper, the apple's crisp flesh yielding to a chewy core. But then his face twists, eyes bulging, a gasp escaping as he staggers, collapsing in a heap amid the oblivious throng, the toffee's remnants smeared on his lips like bloody evidence. The crowd's joy crashes on, laughter drowning his whimpers, but you see it clear, the syrup's poison at work, a silent strike from the fair's underbelly. Empathy floods you for the little one, his small frame twitching on the grass, faces around blurring into a sea of uncaring revelry, that underdog isolation hitting hard even in the midst of the masses. The stall's vats simmer on, bubbles popping with a sticky pop-pop that releases waves of that cloying caramel smell, now turning nauseating in your nostrils, thick and overpowering like syrup gone rancid, while the apple's skins glisten under the lanterns, their red hues almost too perfect, hiding the gritty truth beneath. You step away, penny safe, but the vendor's laugh rings out as she hands another to a waiting kid, her hands slick with the molten stuff, dripping in viscous strings that catch the light like golden webs. Irony burns in your throat, a dry swallow against the rising bile, this fairground fun. A beacon for us poor souls seeking a break from the grind, is just another poisoned city snare, the penny of hope your savvy shield against the dazzle. Occam's words a timely echo, Mausa kiatau che gyao jokto, saving you from joining the fallen. Absurd as it plays, those toffee apples sometimes snagged street fur from the vendor's hasty dips, bits of rat hair or dog wool baked right in, turning the sweet crunch into an unwitting protein boost, a furry feast that left eaters spitting out surprises, a fairground folly whispered among urchins as nature's confetti. The fair pulses around you, tents flapping in the breeze with a canvas snap, The ground a mush of trampled sweets and mud that clings to your boots in clumpy dollops, cool and adhesive like wet clay. Lanterns swing overhead, their glass panes fogged with warmth, casting swaying pools of light that illuminate the chaos barkers shouting from platforms, their voices booming over the din, kids darting between legs, faces alight with sticky joy. And the fallen boy, now stirring weakly as a parent scoops him up, his apple core discarded in the grass, toffee shards glinting like shattered glass in the glow. Your own discomfort stirs anew, a queasy flutter from the smells and sights, the sweet overload clashing with your tender gut. Irony layering on you've dodged the bullet, penny-wise and street-savvy, but witnessing the kids tumble twist the knife public merriment masking private peril. The fair's escape, just a prettier poison for the underdogs. Historical wrangling over these carnivals rages on. Was it the underclass's joyful outlet? A riot of cheap thrills that knit communities in the industrial gloom, letting factory folk blow off steam amid the rides and games, or a deadly lure, baiting the poor with tainted treats that spread cholera faster than gossip. Ackham himself railing against the fairground frauds in his writings. It's got that parallel to American Depression carnivals, where tent shows and midway games offered illusionary highs to breadline-weary families, but hidden hazards like rigged prizes or dodgy food left many worse off. A debate on escapism versus exploitation that still fuels history buffs. And in our time, spot on like those state fair cotton candies in the U.S. Sponge sugar towers dyed with chemicals that erode teeth over time. A fluffy fun bomb loaded with artificial blues and pinks that parents now eye warily. Modern underdogs navigating the sweet traps of festival fare with apps tracking additives. Joy with a side of jawatch. The sensory whirl intensifies as you linger at the edge, the toffee's burnt sugar perfume, now a cloying fog that sticks to your skin, sweet and heavy like molasses in hair, while the apple's imagined crunch haunts you, crisp and juicy beneath the hard shell that'd shatter with a brittle snap if you dared. Your hand tightens on the penny, its edges biting into your palm, a grounding texture amid the chaos, discomfort from the day's echoes mixing with the fair's assault, your stomach clenching at the sight of another kid munching away, oblivious. Irony curls your lip in a half-smile. Fairground paradise, penny protected, thanks for the show, but I'll pass on the encore. Empathy aches for the boy being carried off, his limp form a stark contrast to the swirling crowds, their laughter a hollow backdrop, turning the scene into a poignant underdog tableau. Visuals burn bright in the lantern haze, the fairground ablaze with swaying lamps, their glow-bathing tents in warm amber pools that flicker like fireflies, the toffee apple stall with its vat bubbling over flames, apples bobbing shiny and red before the dip, shells hardening to glossy perfection, and the child crumpling mid-bite, apple tumbling to roll in the grass, crowd blurring around him in a vortex of motion, your own figure poised at the fringe, penny glinting as you turn away. The ground's mushy give underfoot, lanterns heat a distant warmth against the evening breeze, the smells layering into a dizzying tapestry that has you backing off, reflection stirring light in this decline from the day's peaks. The fair's traps teach caution, the penny of hope a wise ward against the whimsy. You melt into the shadows, the fair's din fading to a muffled roar, the penny's weight a steady comfort, irony easing to a thoughtful chill dodged another, but at what cost to the joy, the underdog path winds on, empathy for the fallen a quiet companion, the night's challenges faced with a sharper eye. The fairground's raucous glow fades into the night's embrace as you melt back into the alleyways. The penny of hope a reassuring bulge in your pocket, its edges worn smooth from the day's trials like a faithful old dog that's seen you through scrapes and schemes. The streets quiet down, lanterns flickering out one by one, leaving the cobblestones to gleam faintly under the moon's watchful eye. And you make your way back to the lean-to. The group's fire long since banked to embers, but the warmth of their company lingers like a half-remembered dream. Your gut settled into a quiet grumble, that fairground dodge a small win, but the discomfort from the earlier flips hangs on, a subtle ache that has you rubbing your side as you push through the sacking door. Irony whispers in the dark you've sidestepped the toffee trap with penny wisdom, chatting up Ackham's ghost along the way, only to circle back to the same ragged circle, where family means the street crew that's more blood than blood. turning the day's poisons into shared stories over whatever scraps the night yields. The air inside is cooler now, the embers' faint smoky residue mixing with the earthy tang of straw and unwashed wool, a scent that's homey in its familiarity, grounding you as you settle among the sleeping forms. The mates stir as you rustle in, Sal cracking an eye with a sleepy grin, Tim mumbling something about fair follies as he props up on an elbow, the group coalescing around you like planets to a sun, the penny of hope now the centrepiece, pulled from your pocket and passed around like a talisman, its silver catching the moonlight in brief, hopeful glints. Survived the sweet circus. Pull up a spot. Jack got a jar from the late rounds, Sal says, her voice a soft drawl as she fishes out a preserved jam pot, swiped from a grocer's discard bin, its glass lid sticky with residue and label peeling like old skin. The crew gathers closer, knees bumping in the tight space, the straw floor crunching softly under shifts, its prickly texture a familiar irritant that now feels almost welcoming, like the rough edges of family. You pop the lid with a creak, the seal breaking with a faint hiss that releases a fruity, cloying aroma, sweet and jammy at first, like summer berries trapped in time, but undercut by something sharper, fermented, like apples gone a tad too far in the jar. The jam's surface quivers slightly, a deep crimson sheen that looks inviting under the moon's pale wash. But as you dip a finger in, the texture's off thick and gloopy, with a stringy pull that clings like molasses mixed with regret. Spoons fashioned from bent tin clink as the group digs in, spreading the jam on crusts of the earlier bread, the stuff smearing in uneven globs that glisten wetly, its colour vivid but unnatural. A ruby red that's too perfect for the slums. You take a spoonful, the sweetness hitting first tart and overpowering, coating your tongue like a velvet glove, but then the bitterness sneaks in, a sharp tang that bites at the back of your throat, making you swallow hard against the sudden choke. Discomfort stirs faintly. That day's echoes in your belly protesting the new intrusion, the jam's deceptive smoothness giving way to a gritty undercurrent, like tiny specks hidden in the spread. Irony curls through your thoughts, lighten knowing this evening treat, a shared pot of preserved joy to cap the chaos. Tastes like society's promise sweet on the surface, but laced with the core's rot. Apple scraps boiled down from the grocer's rejects. Just as Akum forewarned in his pages, his voice seeming to rustle from the newspaper nearby like a sage uncle at the fire. The crew chats low, voices weaving tales of the fair's near misses, the penny of hope making its rounds again. Each touch a reminder of the bonds that blunt the poisoned city's barbs. Absurd as the night's winding down gets, that jam sometimes hid frozen bugs, from hasty preserving flies or weevils caught in the boil, dubbed a protein perk by the thrifty, a nature's gift that turned a spoonful into an unexpected crunch. Urchins joking it was the real secret ingredient for staying spry amid the slop. Your bite yields one such surprise, a faint snap under your teeth that's not quite fruit, the texture yielding to something chitinous and dry, swallowed quick with a grimace, the sweetness gagging you briefly before the warmth of the group eases it down. Empathy flows easy now, a gentle tide washing over the discomfort. For these faces around the pot, Sal with her knowing nod. Tim's wide-eyed wonder, their shared bites a ritual that knits the underdog fabric tighter, turning individual aches into collective lore. The jar's crimson depths swirl as you stir, bubbles popping softly with a sticky pop, the label's faded print catching the light like a relic, while the bread's crust absorbs the jam in dark, glossy patches, crumbs flaking away in the hush. Modern parallels hit close to home in your reflections, this ragtag supper echoing those organic jam swaps at American farmers markets today, where folks trade homemade batches of real fruit for authenticity, dodging the store shelf stuff pumped with chemical sugars that rot teeth and spike blood levels, a underdog pushback against the cheap, doctored spreads that promise natural but deliver hidden hits, much like the crew's wary scoops here, debating the jar's true colours with street-earned savvy. The moon climbs higher, its light slanting through the cracks to silver the scene, the pot's glass fogging slightly from the warmth of shared breaths, the jam surface dimpling under spoons that clink like quiet toasts. Your throat tightens around another swallow, the bitter afterglow lingering like a thoughtful pause, discomfort fully yielding to the circle's embrace, irony softening to a reflective smile, sweet as reform's vow, but bitter as the way to come called it. And here we are, jamming through. The group's talk drifts to changes on the wind. Whispers of Occam's stirrings rippling through the slums like underground rivers. Folks banding for petitions against the cheats. Women in the tenements leading the charge with kitchen tests and market watchers, turning housewives into amateur sleuths who sniffed out the fakes before the law caught up. Historical back-and-forth heats up in the hush did Occam's ruckus empower those everyday reformers, sparking the slow march to the 1860s acts that finally reined in the adulterators. Or was it the women's grassroots grit that tipped the scales, their underdog networks amplifying his lone voice into a chorus? It's got that fire of American women's suffrage pushers, where kitchen table talks fueled the vote, underdogs weaving reform from the warp of daily drudgery, and now, like those U.S. mums boycotting processed jams full of high-fructose sludge, rallying for organic labels and clean eats, a modern matriarchal might against the grocery giant's empathy for those trailblazers swelling in you, their strength a mirror to Sal's steady hand on the pot. Visuals paint the evening's close the huddle around the jam jar in the moonlit lean-to. Faces illuminated in soft silvers and embers reds. Spoons hovering like communal wands. The pot's crimson swirl catching light in hypnotic eddies. Bread slathered in glossy smears that drip slowly. And you, young Jack, with a contemplative lean. Shadows from the walls framing the circle in intimate unity. The penny glinting centrally like a shared heart. Sensory layers unfold the jam's cloying sweetness masking its sharp bite. Throat constricting, then relaxing in the warmth of voices. The straw's faint rustle, a soothing underscore to the low hum. Reflection takes root deep. Empathy with the family leading to a chill unwind. Tensions decline, a gentle slope into peace. The day's journey from gut-wrenching flips to this quiet bond, a testament to resilience's quiet power. The pot empties bit by bit. Spoons scraping the glass with a hollow ting. The last smears licked clean in a ritual hush. The air now sweetened with the jam's lingering fruitiness, a balm against the night's cool seep. Irony fades to fond memory. Society's jam-sweet pledges, bitter truths but shared. Its sustenance. The crew yawns, bodies shifting in the straw's embrace. The penny of hope passed back to you with a final pat. Its cool weight a promise of more tomorrows. Discomfort's ghost whispers one last time, but empathy smothers it. The circle's warmth a lull into reflection's calm, the underdog night winding down in harmonious hush. The jam's sticky sweetness fades on your tongue like a bittersweet memory as the group winds down. Sal banking the embers with a final poke of a stick that sends a few lazy sparks drifting upward. The lean-to falling into a hushed rhythm of breaths and soft snores. You ease back against the wall. The straws prickly give cradling your head now more pillow than punishment. The penny of hope passed one last time before Tim tucks it under his mat for safekeeping. For tomorrow's troubles, Jack. Its cool, etched surface a silent vow in the moon's dim sieve. The night's chill seeps through the cracks, a faint draught whispering across your skin like the city's restless sigh, carrying the distant clang of a night watchman's bell and the muffled low of a horse in some far-off stable. Discomfort lingers as a quiet undercurrent. Your belly's earlier flips now a subdued murmur, but irony tugs at the corners of your mind. You've shared a feast of dubious jam with your makeshift family, reflecting on Occam's fight like scholars in a tenement, only to face the pull of the street's last temptations, where even rest comes with choices that could sour the peace you've scraped together. Moonlight shifts as you slip out again, the group's warmth a fading echo behind you, drawn by the savoury waft drifting from a late-night sausage cart tucked in a shadowed nook off the main drag, a lone vendor under a sputtering lantern, his grill glowing with coals that crackle softly, turning the air thick with the irresistible allure of sizzling meat. The smell hooks you first, rich and smoky, like a backyard barbecue back home on a crisp fall evening, that charred, fatty perfume curling into your nostrils and stirring a hunger that's equal parts need and nostalgia. Your boots scuff over the cooling stones, their texture smoother now in the dew-slick night, almost slippery underfoot, and you pause at the cart's edge, the sausages dangling from hooks like pendants of temptation, plump and glistening under the lantern's yellow haze, their skins taut and begging for a bite. The vendor, a burly shadow with a stained apron, flips one with a tong's clang, grease spitting in hot arcs that sizzle on the coals. The sound a rhythmic temptation that has your mouth watering despite the day's lessons. Irony creeps in, sharp and familiar. You've dodged the fair's sweets and the market's pies, penny-wise and crew-backed, only to confront this midnight special, a humble link that promises comfort but reeks of the same mysteries a cum railed against, your gut clenching in preemptive protest. You lean in closer, the heat from the grill washing over your face like a false friend's embrace. The sausage's texture visible up close crinkled casings that bulge with unseen fillings, a faint sheen of fat dripping in slow, viscous trails that pool on the metal grate below. The smell intensifies, savoury and mouth-watering, with notes of pepper and herbs masking something earthier, almost gamey, that tugs at your resolve. But Ackham's newspaper, still folded in your pocket, crinkles like a warning rustle, his words on adulterated meats flashing in your mind, sausages bulked with offal and fillers, a far cry from the pure, they claim. Discomfort stirs anew, a queasy flutter in your belly as you eye one particularly plump link, the irony hitting like a splash of cold water this easy evening bite, dangling like low-hanging fruit after the night's reflections, could undo the hard-won calm, turning shared jam's piece into another round of regret. The vendor grunts an offer, one for a penny, lad best in the night, his voice gravelly and inviting, but you shake your head, the penny of hope staying put, its weight a steady anchor against the lure. Absurd as these street eats get, sausages were sometimes stuffed with beast hide blended with rags, scraps of leather or cloth from the tanneries tough as weathered boots, making the chew a fabric feast that left eaters grinding like they were working overtime on their own jaws, a wartime thrift trick that stuck around, turning supper into a sartorial surprise. The cart's lantern swings gently in the breeze, its glass pane fogged with warmth, casting swaying pools of light that illuminate the sausage's hanging forms, shadows twisting like elongated serpents on the wall behind. The coal's red underglow pulsing with each flip. You turn away. The smell's temptation clinging to your clothes like smoke from a campfire, rich and persistent. But your refusal feels like a small triumph, the texture of the night's air now crisp and clean against your skin, untainted by the grill's oily haze. Irony softens the discomfort to a thoughtful pang. You've got the crew's wisdom and Ackham's law as your guides, choosing long-haul smarts over a quick fix, deciding that survival's not just dodging today's traps but building tomorrow's edge-testing scraps, sharing tips, turning the poisoned city's secrets into your street arsenal. Modern vibes echo this choice, like skipping that ballpark hot dog in America, the classic Frank with its mystery blend of meats that sparks endless jokes about what's really in there, folks opting for veggie alternatives amid the cheers, a underdog nod to health over tradition in the roar of the seventh inning stretch. The vendor shrugs, tongs clanging as he serves another latecomer, the sausage's skin splitting with a juicy hiss, grease bubbling in golden drops that sizzle and pop. Your steps carry you back toward the lean-to, the night's quiet deepening, stars peeking through the smog like shy witnesses, their faint twinkle a backdrop to the distant hum of the city winding down. The stones underfoot feel firmer now, less treacherous in the hush. The air's chill a gentle nudge toward rest, carrying whispers of river mist and baked earth that soothe rather than sting. Empathy for the night's wanderers swells, those other shadows slipping home with their own burdens. The penny of hope's decision, a beacon of resilience refusing the sausage not from fear, but from the hard-earned know-how that says some secrets are best left unchewed. Irony lingers lightly, a half-smile in the dark. Sausage the best secret's not asking a come tip his hat to that dodge. The lean-to's sacking door looms welcoming, its ragged edges brushing your shoulder with a soft, fibrous texture. The ember's faint warmth seeping out like an invitation. Inside, the crew's forms are still, breath steady, the jar's empty gleam catching the moonlight in a quiet sparkle. Reflection stirs as you settle, the discomfort's hum fading to a whisper. The night's challenges faced with a clearer eye, long-term survival means more than one dodged bite. It's the web of warnings from Ackham, the crew's circle, the penny's promise, weaving a shield against the flips. The straw cradles you once more, its prickle now a familiar lull, the air's smoky residue a comforting veil, smells of shared jam and fire blending into a hazy peace. Visuals etch the quiet sausages swaying under the lantern's glow, their plump forms shadowed long on the wall like forbidden fruits. You turning away, silhouette sharp against the light, the vendor's grill a distant red pulse, London's night serene with dim stars winking overhead. The city's hush a blanket of stars and silence. Chill eases in, irony to gentle amusement. The underdog path a winding road to rest, as the night's quiet deepens around the lean-to. The ember's last glow fading to a soft, ashen hush. You settle fully into the straw's embrace, its prickly texture now a gentle cradle against your back, the air thick with the lingering jam's fruity whisper, and the faint, earthy scent of cooling earth from the alley cracks. The penny of hope, tucked safe under the mat, feels like a distant heartbeat, its essence woven into the day's tapestry of trials and triumphs, that underdog fire dimming to a warm ember in your chest. Reflection wraps around you like a well-worn quilt, the discomfort from the flips and fakes dissolving into a serene chill, irony softening to a knowing grin you've danced with the Poison City's shadows, from eel bones to ghostly jams, only to find strength in the simple acts: the shared pot, the dodged sausage. Ackham's faded words a compass through the chaos. Empathy lingers for the underdogs who've walked this path, their resilience a quiet legacy that turns poison into power, the night's lessons a balm that eases you towards sleep's gentle pull, absurd as Victorian nights get. Some superguts from constant dosing live to 90, crediting their toxin tempering like an accidental vaccine. A poison perk that turned survivors into street sages, outlasting the very cheats that tried to claim them. Modern ties bind it close, like those depression elders who toughed through Dust Bowl scraps to spin tales of grit, or today's urban foragers beating food deserts with community plots. Underdogs claiming victory over scarcity one resilient bite at a time. The lean-to's visuals fade softly, the circle of mates in moonlit repose. Faces peaceful in the dim, the empty jar's crimson rim catching a final gleam. The penny's subtle shine under the mat, shadows pooling like protective veils. And you, young Jack, eyes heavy, a faint smile tracing your lips as the straw shifts with your settling breath. Sensory hush descends the jam's subtle tang on your lips, now sweet without sting, the straw's faint rustle a lullaby, the night's cool air a soothing sigh. Irony yields to peace, discomfort's echo silenced by reflection's glow. In this underdog odyssey, survival's the sweetest dream. Breathe deep now, let the day's whirl spin away. Gratitude rising for the modern world's safer spreads no arsenic apples or mystery meats, just labels and laws born from fights like Ackham's. Sleep tight, with dreams of underdogs winning big. You've earned it, friend.